This is the iBasso SR3. This is a $500 or 500 euros headphone. It is a dynamic headphone made to be worn over the ear. So it would look kind of like this while being worn. It doesn't really offer any kind of passive noise isolation, although it does muffle the sound a bit, but it is not real passive noise isolation. It is basically an open back headphone made for you to enjoy your music. So let's see what it does best and how does it sound like. Those headphones are adjustable in every single way, like most headphones that I review, but the adjustment mechanism is quite stiff, so they don't really adjust that easily. I think that this is good because if they adjust too easily, they will just feel cheap and they will just move around. You can adjust the headband size. Right now it is at almost the largest. It can be made tighter. There is notation on the right and on the left ear cup. I think that I need almost the largest setting for my head. Yeah, I need pretty much the largest setting. Not exactly the largest, but almost the largest. This is how they look while being worn. They look really cool. This is one of those headphones that really look cool in person and while you are wearing them. Most headphones look average or even bad. There are many headphones that just don't look great while you are wearing them. CR3 really looks nice. They are pretty resistant, as I said, swiveling in every direction. You don't really need to be concerned about the comfort. The ear cups are really deep, so more than half of my finger can go inside of the ear cups, a lot of space for my ears, and they are round in shape, but there is a lot of space, so no problem in ergonomics and no problem in the overall comfort. Inside of the package, you will not just get the headphones, but also this beautiful carrying case. I mean, just look at it. Very resistant, very big, and offers them excellent protection. And you will also find a second pair of ear pads. They supposedly changed the sound, but I didn't really take the time before filming this video to change them. They look very different though, so the cuts look different, so I suppose that they will influence the sound. I just don't know how yet. They are very different. So they are not spares, they are tuning ear pads. It is an important distinction. We also have a manual or a quick start guide on the CR3, safety instructions. The drivers are made out of a biocellulose dome diaphragm, silicone suspension, and Tesla magnetic design. We have the storage case. Also, the default cable is 4.4mm balance, so you don't need to purchase an upgrade cable right away. You can use them with their default cable, and I'll come back to that. The default cable is quite excellent. They are considered to be open back. The sensitivity is noted to be 106 decibels. The impedance is 150 ohms. This means that they are quite hard to drive and they are one of those high impedance headphones. And they do sound like it. We will come back to that a bit later. They are also a bit heavier than my typical headphones. They weigh 395 grams, which is quite heavy, but you don't really feel that. And I'll explain that in a second as well. There are measurements already done by iBasso if you are curious about them. I'll try to show them on the screen. I think that their measurements are mostly accurate. They do sound a bit like they look in those measurements. But first, let's check out the cables. Those are the cables of the CR3. I mean, just look at those cables. Those are some beautiful cables. Like, just look at this quality. This is better than most aftermarket cables in quality. They have 3.5mm jacks at the headphone side, which means that they will be compatible with pretty much every single HiFi headphone. They have a 4.4mm connector, which will be compatible with most DAWs and sources and such, which is really nice. You just plug the cable into the headphones, and then you are ready to go. This is how they look like. Really cool. They even sit nicely around my neck. They don't really choke me. They have very good comfort. The cable is very nice. It keeps its kinks a bit, but it is not very springy. It is just very slightly springy. It is not tangle prone at all. It doesn't really tangle with itself, which is nice. And the cable doesn't really conduct much microphonic noise, which is also nice because for full-sized headphones, that may be a concern, especially since the cable doesn't go over the ear and doesn't have where to lose those noises. Yeah, you can't even hear it if you hit the cable here. This is one of the best cables I've seen in a headphone, and those are priced just $500 or 500 euros, which is less than some aftermarket cables that I have reviewed on the channel, just to put it into perspective. I basically have been launching a ton of headphones and products with very high performance but very low prices, so it is interesting to see those things. I mean, I'm an enthusiast and I'm enthusiastic about their latest releases. The headphones feel very nice, everything is nice, they are hard to drive, and as I mentioned, they sound like they are a high impedance headphone, which means that they have this really good dynamic. The dynamics are excellent. They are just like, at the slightest amount of force, they will sound everything just goes explosive, and you don't need a very strong signal either. Being high impedance means that they are picky with the sources, so this means basically that even classical music will sound very dynamic and engaging, very peppy and very impactful. Jazz will sound nice, rock will sound even nicer, metal, EDM, pop, every single type of music will just sound very punchy out of the SR3 headphones. One area where they don't do so well is the bass, because the sound doesn't have the biggest basses ever. The sound is a bit on the brighter side. It has a very good extension, very good soundstage, but it is mainly mid-range and treble. It is not a very bassy sound, which means that the sound won't be like poo poo, a lot of impact. And that isn't a problem, but I think that they are not ideal for EDM and for pop music in particular, or for rap music, actually, now that I think about it. That being said, with music that is supposed to sound musical, with classical, with jazz, with room music, with rock, even with metal music, they sound absolutely sublime. The detail and the resolution is quite great. It is a very resolute headphone and it doesn't really focus on resolution. So you need to imagine this. They aren't made and they aren't designed to sound as detailed as possible. They aren't analytic. They rather blend everything in. They make music sound coherent. They make music sound musical, and they don't force, they don't shove those details onto you. They rather allow you to experience music. They create music as if it was being played in front of you by a very calm and mature artist. They aren't the kind of headphone that can really recreate the feeling of a live concert if you are into rock and metal, but they are the kind of headphone that can allow you to really experience music as an experience in total. So the music they will sound best with is rock, chamber music, jazz, classical. They will sound best with those types of music. With rock and with metal, they will sound quite good because they are detailed and they have the resolution to sound good. They do bring the impact and they do bring the dynamics, but they don't bring that wall of sound feeling. Since the sound is very dynamic, usually music that it sounds like a wall, and that is most commercial music and pop and electronic, will just not sound that wally. They will come at you like instruments, and that's maybe a bit confusing at first. This is the life with the high-end headphone that actually sounds high-end. It is interesting. The soundstage is very large, but it is also natural. So even though it extends very much, it doesn't really project music outside of its normal boundary. It just keeps everything where it should be in terms of sound. It just sounds natural and coherent. Everything just sounds where it should sound. It doesn't go out of the room, but it is out of your head. Music never sounds like inside of your head. It just sounds around you. Instrument separation is quite good as well, and they are a very pleasing pair of headphones. They sound natural, they sound dynamic, they sound punchy, and they are one of my favorite headphones when I want to enjoy something more relaxed. The sound is relaxed, it is a bit smoother in the texture, and it is generally super enjoyable. This is how I would describe the iBasso SR3. They aren't a perfect headphone, and no headphone is ever perfect, but they get pretty close to being perfect, and that I think is a beautiful thing. For $500 there are a ton of options. For example, the Olo S5X, which I also use a lot. It should be visible in the back. If it wasn't quite visible, I decided to grab it. So the Olo S5X sounds thicker, warmer. Those are much bassier and smoother in general. The iBasso SR3 does a much better job at reproducing treble, air, crashes, everything that is usually present in music. Olo S5X is easier to enjoy for a longer period of time if you are easily fatigued by treble, while iBasso SR3 is easier to enjoy due to their comfort. They are much larger and more comfortable. As I was saying, theoretically they are quite heavy at 400 grams, but that weight is very evenly distributed by this headband, so you never really feel their weight. You feel them very comfortable on your head, so they sit really comfortably. The weight is very evenly distributed on your head, and I really like that. It is understandable with a headphone like the Audeze MM500 that they are heavy because they are made to sit extremely tight on the head so that they always produce the same sound. That is a good design for what they are intending to do. With iBasso SR3, they are made for music listening. They aren't supposed to be precise to the level of discomfort. They are supposed to be pleasing to the level of comfort, and that is a very big difference. One of the very few headphones that actually looks good, and I'm not exactly the biggest fashionista out there, but I like feeling good and I like looking good. They would prefer a source that is tube based, so something like the Felix Echo Mark II or Felix Echo 2 is better as an amplifier than most solid state amplifiers because they have such a low level of distortion. They can sound a bit analytical at times. The sound is really precise and really clean, also really dynamic, and it doesn't have a lot of distortion. So the typical distortion of the tube ends up sounding quite pleasing through the iBasso SR3. This is why this type of headphones with high impedance usually sound very good with tube-based amplifiers. They also don't have a very warm mid-range, which is also helped by having a tube amplifier, but in the light of my other recent reviews, I think they also pair beautifully with the Astel & Kern Acro CA1000T, which is basically always on my desk since receiving it, and it is the main source that I've used to review those. I think that all in all they are a very enjoyable headphone, and I really hope that you've enjoyed today's review. I hope you'll consider subscribing to Audiophile Heaven. Also leave a like on this video if you enjoyed the content. I thank you so much for watching, and I hope we'll see each other really soon. Bye bye!